With MJF talking about his experience in WWE and more, this is Wrestling Hub. My name is John, and you're watching the second edition of the Wrestling Report for September 20th. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official and follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. After having emergency surgery for her appendix, which was about to burst, Trish Stratus took to social media to give fans an update on her health. Here's the video.
Oh, hello. Don't mind me, I'm just sipping on some bone broth that's been brewed for 36 hours that my mom made me for healing. I just wanted to hop on here and say thank you for all the messages. I did not expect such an outpour of support and well wishes, and it really means a lot, and I'm sorry if I worried you. It was just a crazy occurrence, and the takeaway is to listen to your body. Thankfully I did, and I'm trying to listen to my body now during the healing process. I tend to do normal person things when I'm a post-surgery person right now, so I'm listening. I hear you, body. I'm listening to my body and trying to slow down and take the time to recover, but everything's okay. Honestly, doing really well. I think a lot of recovery is mind over matter. I think it's outlook and also putting in the good stuff, like the bone broth and protein and vitamin C and all that good stuff. So yeah, bone broth, delicious, very healing, nutritious too.
According to PW Insider, Kushida was slated to appear for a New Japan event tomorrow, but won't be able to make it. Kushida was removed from Saturday's event after presenting with a fever. After testing negative for COVID, he underwent consultation with doctors who diagnosed him with a suspected skin disease. We apologize to fans who were looking forward to seeing Kushida wrestle and appreciate your understanding. Speaking about his time in WWE with Renee Paquette, one half of the AEW Tag Team Champion, Swerve Strickland mentioned how he felt overlooked on NXT. It's interesting to see people that had that thought about me. Like, I was on the up and up in NXT and was like, oh man, you're getting a lot of success. But at the time, there was no chatter about me in NXT at all, because for that first year, I felt like I was just like a good hand to have. That's also what built up a lot of that resentment that was starting to build a little bit, because I put over the Leo Rushes. I put Cameron Grimes over. I put over the Santos Escobars. I put over the Bronson Reeds, the Austin Theories. I kept putting all of these people over. Even when MSK first came in, their debut was against me, and I put them over. I put over Leon Ruff. So it was just like, okay, I had like a couple conversations with Triple H. I'm like, when am I going to be your guy? What is it going to take for me to be your guy? I had 3 specific conversations with him. I'll never forget them, that I always push the envelope for. I even texted him one day. I was like, can I have a conversation with you? He said, is there anything that you can talk to Matt Bloom about? I was like, no. He was like, okay. I would stare holes in him all day of production. I wanted him to feel the heat that I was like glaring on him. Finally, when we did have a conversation, I'm like, what is your hesitation putting the ball in my hands? He gave me like the answers that kind of felt like they were repetitious answers from this person asking him, and the one before. I was like, okay, I got it. So I knew keep tapping that egg wasn't going to work. So I'm like, okay, here's me. I gotta be creative. I gotta think again. So I went to Shawn, and Shawn Michaels started really sitting down having hour-long tape studies. Just me and him. No distractions, not in the middle of TV day. It's just me and him in the office. We were watching me and Matt Riddle from Defy Wrestling. We're watching PCW Ultra stuff from LA. We were watching other stuff and like, okay, I want to watch what you got here. Why are you here? That's the person I want to see. That's what turned everything around for me. So I took like a year of doing all that stuff to get to that point, to be able to do that, to have that equity, to even get that conversation, that window open. Then it was just like, okay, cool. And that's where it started really turning around. That's where my hair color started changing. They put the grills in my mouth and all that other stuff. I really started dabbing into the hip-hop field of things. Me and Bronson had another TV match, Jonah, and we just went at it because I felt like Triple H didn't feel like I was intense enough. I was like, okay, so we just beat the crap out of each other. Boom, had a banger. That's when the light bulb went off for them. Then Stephanie McMahon came up and said, you're like my favorite heel. You're my favorite heel here. And then everything just kind of whirlwinds and went up from there. During the KNS virtual signing, Sean Waltman was asked who he'd like to wrestle if he were to make an in-ring return, as he said, "It's hard for me to answer a question like that. I'm not in a frame of mind, or I'm at physically, to wrap my head around it, especially after the last couple of matches I had. We get old, man. Can't walk the next day after I do stuff like that. If I get back in the ring again, it's going to be a pretty big deal. It's going to be something big like the Royal Rumble." Talking to Radio Raheem, undisputed Universal Champion Roman Reigns touched on Tyson Fury's involvement at Clash at the Castle. Well, he did a solid. I think he was lost in the match, along with everybody else that was in that stadium. He saw a guy like Austin Theory running down there, trying to interrupt this great battle that was taking place in front of them, and he pulled the trigger and stopped it himself. So, I think that was just him being a huge fan of the moment, and not wanting that moment to be ruined by some dummy like Theory. He just stepped in, intervened, and he allowed it to play out like a champion would want it to be seen. Then, the true champion won the match, and everything is how it needs to be. The world is perfect. Speaking on the In the Click podcast, Raw Women's Champion Bianca Belair talked about the expectations that Triple H has of her, saying, "I think that he expects of me the same thing that he expected me in NXT, and that's just to go out there and be Bianca Belair and be the EST every time I step in the ring. He expects for me to be the strongest, the fastest, the roughest, the toughest, the quickest, the greatest, the best. Now that I'm champion, he expects me to go out there and still be the face of this company, and just go out there and put on great shows for our fans and put smiles on our fans' faces." When asked by Ryan Satin on Out of Character about a dream match for him now that he's back in WWE, Johnny Gargano said, "It's one of the underrated ones that don't get talked about enough is me and Rey Mysterio. It's definitely a dream match for me. He is literally the trendsetter for guys like me. He has been amazingly great for many, many years. He is the GOAT for a reason, and I can't wait to get in the ring with Rey. I used to make like little paper mache Rey Mysterio masks when he was a cruiserweight in WCW, so now to potentially get the chance to potentially get in the ring with him would be a dream come true." With Inside the Ropes, Sheamus revealed that he is still attempting to bring back his old Written in My Face theme song. "I definitely would love to bring that song back. Before I know it was stopped, they were gonna let me have it. It's amazing what a song can do, or an entrance music can do, to bring people back in with that nostalgia. I definitely will keep pushing to have that song back, and it's something that I haven't given up on, but I think there'll be a time and place for that to come back. I think it will be massive, and I'll be buzzing off it too, because like that just brings back so many memories at the beginning of my career, and for fans too as well." Talking about Bayley's promo from Monday Night Raw this week, former WWE writer Vince Russo said on his podcast, "She will no longer be referred to as Bayley on this show. I've got a new name for her. Her name is the Queen of Cheap Heat. It's freaking pathetic. She's cutting a promo on the San Jose Sharks. So going forward, she is the Queen of Cheap Heat. That's all she does every freaking promo." With all the backstage drama in AEW, former WWE referee Mike Chioda spoke on his Monday mailbag about the president of the company's leadership. "Tony Khan is the leader. It doesn't seem like he leads. He doesn't need to be on every podcast. He needs to be behind the scenes more." While Kevin Nash called out those involved in the AEW backstage brawl, he would say this regarding the suspensions for those talent in the fight on his podcast: "You're 1099s. You know what that means? That means you were painting somebody's house and you guys got into a fight and they told you you're all suspended. So they're the cop that shoots the guy 23 times in the back and sits at his desk? That's an effective way to manage. What a bunch of Speaking of Brandon Walker, MJF touched on pro wrestling Twitter as he said, "My problem with wrestling Twitter is it's not real life. You guys will put people over on there that are garbage at wrestling, aren't good at talking, are good at nothing, but they post funny videos online and you're like, that's the guy. Someone sign him. It's stupid." Then there's the other flip side. You need to be watching New Japan Pro Wrestling, CMLL, because this guy. You guys are watching clips and being like, this guy's one of the top 10 wrestlers in the world. They are not. In that same interview, when asked about New Japan Pro Wrestling, a promotion partnered with AEW, MJF said, "I hate New Japan. I don't understand how people still pretend it's a company. They could pay me $1 billion. I won't go." Recalling his time doing extra work for WWE, MJF mentioned on Barstool Wrestling that, "In the words of one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, John Cena, never give up. I met him one time. It was back in the day I was 18. I was doing extra work for WWE and they wanted to paint me up like a Finn Balor because they were trying to figure out what paint should look like for the show. So they painted me up. They took a photo of me. Finn Balor comes in the room. He was like, 'Yeah, this is good.' And I was like, 'This is wild.' Like, what a wild contempt interaction. Like, couldn't you guys just did a mock training like a cartoon?" I was quite literally the paint dummy for Finn Balor. So I leave the room and I wash off as much of it as I can. But obviously I'm doing extra work. So I showed up in a suit. So the only thing I was wearing was dress pants and dress shoes. Basically, I looked like Darby Allin, and you never want to look like Darby Allin. So obviously Cena looked at me and he was like, interesting choice of clothes." And I said, "Thank you, John." And I walked away, and that was our interaction. Talking about the backstage reaction to Cody Rhodes leaving AEW, MJF said on the MMA Hour that not favorably in the sense that, yay, Cody's gone, but favorably in the sense that we're all professional wrestlers and what happens when somebody leaves is it opens room for opportunities for another person to step up to the plate. When big names leave, big names step up. That's just how this business works. I think people who were friends with Cody were sad to see him go on a personal level, but this is a very competitive sport. And this was your pro wrestling news update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.